Sunn, Sunn, Michelle, language expert, Geechee Gullah in particular, woke. I don't know how that got co-opted. I was on the woke 100 list of Essence. Now it's like I can't even say that because it's like these people they ruin everything. Y'all ruin everything. Y'all horrible people. But now they can't define it. Now they're coming up with these whack definitions. I want to play a clip from South Carolinian, amazing, brilliant person, Michael Harriet. He's on with W. Kamau Bell, who's also pretty brilliant. So was his mother, by the way, brilliant educator. Talking about the history of woke. So let's keep this on a loop. I want to tweet this out many times. Y'all just share this with people, because if you allow someone to take your language
right.
and give it a meaning and gaslight the world, then you have lost the battle, and we're not losing this. Right. Play that, Smith.
There's the word woke, and then there is the concept of woke. So that concept has been around for years. The interesting thing about it is the first time we heard the word woke in history was in the 1920s with a blues player named Huddy Ledbetter. He heard about this case of some black boys in Alabama who had been falsely accused of raping a white woman. And they were imprisoned, and he wrote a song about it called the Scottsboro Boys. Now, after he finishes playing the song, he waits for a second, and then he tells everyone, if you're black and if you're going through Alabama, keep your eyes open. Y'all got to stay woke.
From those roots, woke established itself as a watchword, a creative way for one black person to say to another, hey, be smart, stay aware. America's dangerous. Keep your top eye open. Keep your head on a swivel. Maybe pull your coat. For decades, woke sort of stayed on the bench of black vernacular, poking its head out here and there. And then came 2014. The killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri by a police officer heralded the rise of the hashtag Stay Woke on Black Twitter. But even though Black Twitter is run by Black folks, it's on regular Twitter where everybody else can see it. And woke eventually became the battle hymn of latte liberals. All of a sudden, everything and everybody was woke. Yep, woke namaste. Woke in the dog park, woke at Pilates, woke at the farmer's market. Woke took on a new form. It was just a battle cry for general self-righteousness and performative social justice campaigns. So many black folks stopped using it seriously then. We just use it for fun now.
Wokeness is divisive, exclusionary, and hateful.
But even though we tried to bury it, they found the body. And Franken-woke was born. A mutant propaganda-riddled abomination of the original meaning that is the very thing that Leadbelly was warning us about in the first place. Now woke is a catch-all pejorative for everything and anything that America sees as a threat. It's the war on Christmas year-round.
So we can't have nice things,
right.
Michelle.
There are two things about that come to mind. Number one is in regards of our communication as Black people in this country. When we learn to communicate with one another in this language that is not our own, we communicated on multiple levels. There is what we were saying, and then there is what we were implying. There is who we were talking to and who we were talking about, and those could not always be known or aligned at the same time. So you need to be able to learn how to talk about someone in their presence, that someone being an overseer, that someone being whoever. In their presence without them knowing, being privy to your communications. So in regards to when you hear someone using your encoded language, we typically would just drop it. That was survival. We would drop it like, oh no, don't, say, hey, you see Mr. Charlie? Like, they know, they hit to that one. Like, no. They know what you're saying, Mr. Charlie. Like, no, don't do that one no more. And so we would drop it, but it was really more a survival tactic, a thing that we were using for survival. Now, as things move forward, it became more of a personal thing where we were the keepers of cool. We, even though we're a minority of the population, world part of the world majority, but minority of the population, we were the quality control inspectors, like the quality and control inspectors of what was cool, what was trendy, what was hot, what was not, and if we saw people outside of the culture, people outside of the community who were making use of our creations, we would let it go and then create a new thing. But what was happening is the flip side of that, which is we are almost like reverse assimilating. Like we're giving them things that are valuable to us to do with what they will. And then after the fact, when we've gone further down the road and realized how much is missing, we then mourn the loss of those things that we gave up. And I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
I was playing some, there was a pair of dancers who do like, bebop dancing and sock hop type stuff like that, and duet, doo wop, and I'm into like old stuff like that. My daddy and all them were into.
Now,
And
what are you playing?
so,
The guitar? Are you playing the piano? What are you playing?
no, well, I'm saying I was watching it, and then these younger
Okay.
cats were like, "Why you watching like that white people stuff?" And I'm like, white people stuff, like one of them literally thought that Chuck Berry was white. Like they actually thought he was a white guy. They didn't know he was black, which is incredible. But you're looking at dances that were created by black people. These are things. Bebop at one point in time was like the hip hop of its generation. Like, do you know that we created jazz? Do you know that we created bluegrass, country, blues? Like, do you know that? Like, no, I don't think a lot of them do know that. That bling, was created. The idea, the word, the concept of bling was created. If I'm not mistaken, bling was actually created, was coined rather by Lil Wayne. But how many of these phrases do we keep using? They're misusing intersectionality in many instances. They're misusing, respectability politics. They're and never mention, Evelyn Higginbotham, who coined the term in a specific way. Like, so we're keep the innovators and creators in our community who come up with these phrases, who come up with these trends, who come up with these things. All someone else has to do is give it the cooties. Just
All right.
type it and we're like, we don't want it anymore. But the truth of the matter is, woke as a phrase, as a concept, because quite frankly, I've heard even other Black people have give a very big definition of the word woke. Like it's very wordy and intricate and complex, but the systematic and this, and I'm like, whoa, time out. It was a very basic phrase in its inception. It simply meant to be aware. That's all. Be mindful, be aware. That's all. Just, hey, stay woke. Then that could be applied to anything. If in the event that you say you're going to eat at somebody's house and they made red rice, hey, stay woke. You can't just
We can't eat everybody's red rice. Yeah. Oh shoot. Who's making the potato salad? Yes.
Right. Hey, stay
Yeah.
woke, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so it was really an alert for you to be mindful, for you to be careful, and you could then apply that to anything. It wasn't specifically just systemic racism or anything in particular. It was just a general sense of awareness, heightened awareness and mindfulness that you could then apply to anything, whether it's
Right.
racism
Right.
or
But it
religion
is
or
it is
relationships.
specifically Black.
Absolutely. See,
And
this
white
is the
folk,
thing.
yeah, let's say that it's ours.
Right. Here's the thing with how white people try to basically say that we don't have anything original to say, or we haven't contributed anything original to English. This is the argument is because you're speaking English and because the etymology of these words dates back to before you were even English speakers, forced to be English speakers. So the word woke obviously exists, and awaken, obviously exists before the African American existed. Okay. But that's not how words, there's denotation, like the root definition of a word, and then there's connotation, which is the way that the word makes you feel or the ideas that it evokes, the semantics of the word that goes on to be the popular perception of that word. And that's what they're fighting. They know that we can't go back in time and change the root definition of a word. So they want to hijack the connotation of those words that have come to mean something different to us. Every now and then there's a new word, like fleek was a new word. We just created, new word. But I think I was watching a British show the other night. I wish I could remember the name, remember the show, but it was definitely like a stodgy sort of, British show where one of the persons said, don't diss my food or like diss something. I'm like, diss? This is This is what it's almost like you let off a helium balloon and you don't know where it's going to land.
Right.
And they just, I'm so old. So y'all using this now? Like, what else are you using that has become this word that is sanitized of its original cultural context and simply means something else? And no one's going to go back and say, Black people created that, or Black people, created this. And this is what's important about that. Now, and I'll get straight to it. The reason it is important to credit the source of these words, the reason that it is important to let it be known that these phrases were coined by people is not only for the cultural context, but for the contribution of those people, because it's easier to erase people. It is easier to set people aside if you could make them and others believe that they have given you nothing, that they have offered up nothing. So even when you're taking this and tying it into our conversation before about who gets to contribute, who gets to lead the way, who gets to be the new talented 10th, or Pharrell once said, the new Black, leaders, who gets not only a seat at the table, but let's start with who built the table. If we're talking about who gets a seat at the table, let's start with the carpenters that made the chairs that we're sitting in. If those carpenters are not at the table, then throw it out, throw the whole, I don't want it. Because at the same time that we are saying, oh, the Black community got to do this and the Black community got to do that, we're speaking of a monolith and Black men and women. We also have Black men and women as if Black non-binary people don't exist. As if Black transgender people don't exist. We talk about Black men and women as if the only binary, the only framework of a family is a heterosexual family. We keep making these little slick comments about family structure that dates back to Africa, and everything else is just this virus that invaded the Black community, which is not true. And so when we're talking about and having these conversations, and I see one billionaire, he's a dude, another billionaire, he's a dude, another billionaire, Tyler Perry, Byron Allen, and Diddy, three dudes in a row, okay? And when are we going to start talking about the people who have something that contribute that do not fit into these neat, comfortable little binaries that nest our bigotry in it, that causes us to turn on our own? We're in too much of a comfortable space at the expense of other people. You can't even bring up a conversation about ableism and ableist language without saying, oh, well, that's just the way Black people talk. You're trying to tell me that there aren't Black people who have disabilities too that might be offended by that, because they're impacted by it differently. They're impacted when you call somebody crippled. They're impacted differently when you call somebody dummy. They're impacted when you ask somebody, are you deaf? When what you really mean is, are you ignorant? They're impacted by telling someone that you're blind when what you really mean is you're telling them that they're foolish. So if you're a person who's actually blind and your condition is likened to foolishness, if you're a person who's actually deaf or hard of hearing and your condition is likened to ignorance, how do you feel? Right. And so we don't ask ourselves these questions when we're talking about the framework for Black America, because so much of what we frame out to be our vision for Black America is co-opted from what has been held up as the ideal. And that ideal is not traditional, that is conditional. And that's one thing that we need to make a discernment of, is not everything that's tradition, or correction, not everything that's condition is tradition or should be tradition.